Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Davies, and I'm the chair of the Finance Division at Babson College. I'm very excited to welcome you to a fireside chat with Bill Cummings. On behalf of the Cutler Center, I'd like to begin by thanking Eric Anderson, Executive Vice President of Cummings Properties, and his team for helping to make this event happen. Eric would like to begin by saying a few words.
Thank you. You're going to hear tonight, and if any of you have read Bill's book, there's a lot of talk or discussion about being opportunistic. With that in mind, I couldn't pass up the opportunity being here to grab a microphone and just chat with all of you. I understand a lot of you are entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, so I hope you'll appreciate what I've got to share. As was mentioned, my name, again, Eric Anderson. I'm the Executive Vice President of Cummings Properties. And my primary responsibility there is to make sure our buildings are full at all times and that our clients are happy. So with that in mind, there's really, from my perspective, two primary takeaways I'd like you all to walk away with this evening. The first is an understanding of Cummings Properties and who we are. Cummings Properties leases and manages 11 million square feet of space in 11 communities north and west of Boston. Now, what I think is particularly interesting is that almost every single one of those properties that are leased and managed by Cummings Properties are leased and managed for the benefit of Cummings Foundation. So what that means is that 100% of the profits from those buildings go directly to Cummings Foundation, which in turn donates millions, tens of millions of dollars every year to hundreds of mostly very small local charities within the communities in which we do business, primarily Middlesex, Essex, and Suffolk counties. So nobody likes to pay rent, but if you're going to pay rent, it's nice knowing that that money is going to charity. So if you or anyone you know has a commercial real estate need, we would appreciate any opportunity to try and earn your business. To help make that an easier decision, on the drive down, Bill and I came up with an idea. We have a number of programs that we make available to aspiring entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs to help facilitate their starting up their businesses. So the special program we came up for this evening, and for anybody here in this room, is that if any of you have a commercial real estate need or think you might in the very near future, we'd like to offer you the opportunity to sign a one-year lease. Could be longer. But a one-year lease, and we would offer the first 4 months of that lease to be absolutely free. And if you can start May 1st, we'd be happy to start right then and there. You can corner me after this event. But we'd like to give you 4 months of free rent, and then if at any point during that 4 months, including at the end of that 4 months, if you would like to cancel your lease for any reason or no reason at all, you can do that. We can part as new friends, and we'll wish you luck, and hopefully you will have had a positive experience there at Cummings Properties. So please do keep that in mind. And again, if you see me or Bill Cummings after the event, we'd be happy to talk with you about that opportunity or anything else you'd like to speak about. So that being said, I'll turn the microphone back over to you.
Thanks, Eric. Before we get started, I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the recent investments that Babson has made in our real estate programs. Last year, we were pleased to hire 2 new full-time lecturers in real estate, Paul Griesmer, who you'll meet shortly, and Aaron Escobedo. Working closely with Michael Harity, these faculty have developed several new exciting courses, including real estate financial modeling, which is based on the industry standard Argus software, residential real estate, and real estate transactions and law. And I'm pleased to report that enrollment in real estate courses is up over 300% for this coming fall semester. The development of additional real estate courses and co-curricular activities is a priority for the college, and we look forward to more initiatives going forward. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Ashley McCary. We are very grateful for Ashley's support of this event and overseeing the generous donation of 100 copies of Bill Cummings' book to the Babson community. For those of you who didn't get a chance to get a book, they will be available in the bookstore after the event, and I believe that Bill is going to be available to sign copies. I had the pleasure of knowing Ashley when she was an undergraduate student at Babson College. She was a terrific student, a presidential scholar, and a member of the Sigma Kappa sorority. Ashley graduated from Babson in 2007 with a concentration in finance. She is currently vice president and wealth management advisor in the Leland Group at Merrill Lynch. She has earned accreditations of certified financial planner, certified investment management analyst, and certified private wealth advisor. She currently lives in Salem with her husband and 2 beautiful daughters. Ashley.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I am very excited to be here tonight. I was fortunate enough to meet Bill and his organization through my career at Merrill Lynch, and more specifically through my late mentor, David Leland, who was also a very good friend of Bill. We're also clients of Cummings Properties. Our Merrill Lynch office in Beverly is located in the Cummings Center, and I would be remiss not to mention what happy tenants we are. Fittingly enough, Bill's career began on local college campuses, selling fruit juice and refrigerated dispensers, the likes of which you'd see at Trim today. By 1970, Bill transitioned to real estate and founded Cummings Properties, which today is a multi-billion-dollar business and has a portfolio of over 100 modern buildings in the suburban Boston area. Bill had very modest origins, having been born during the Great Depression. But he learned at an early age that generosity has an enduring and priceless dividend all its own. He established the Cummings Foundation with his wife Joyce, and together they have awarded more than $200 million in grants to local nonprofits. Bill and Joyce were also the first Massachusetts residents to join the Giving Pledge, an international philanthropic organization founded by Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett. As a Babson alum who attended FME classes not so long ago, I can tell you that Bill's experiences extend far beyond real estate success and channel the entrepreneurial and philanthropic spirit that Babson so embraces. And this is well memorialized in his recent memoir, Starting Small and Making It Big, An Entrepreneur's Journey to Billion-Dollar Philanthropist. Bill will be joined on stage tonight by moderator Paul Griesmer, a Babson lecturer whose own real estate experience spans 30 years. Paul's career has included real estate development in resorts, office buildings, retail, residential properties, and marinas, to name a few. He is currently a managing director with a boutique consulting firm and lecturer here at Babson College, teaching real estate investment and real estate finance. And with that, it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you now Bill Cummings and Paul Griesmer.
Farrah, are these on? Mine is too. Thank you all for coming. My name is Paul Griesmer. Our guest this evening is Bill Cummings. Bill, I've read the book, and there's a lot in that story, from sales to small entrepreneurship to a small real estate project to a multi-billion-dollar platform transitioned into philanthropy. So there's a lot that we can talk about, and I know some people will have questions, but it's your story. Where would you like to begin?
I think the one thing that might be good, am I coming across okay up in the back? Okay. I think the one thing that might be a good way to start would be not to read a whole lot of a book, but to read a few paragraphs. Some of the paragraphs that kind of define what we're doing. So I'm going to take and beg your indulgence and read 3 paragraphs now, and I've got 3 others that I'll read at the end that sum up a lot of what we're doing, particularly on the philanthropic side. My wife, Joyce, hesitated in May 2011 as she packed her suitcase for our early summer trip to Arizona. The event's registration materials stated that the affair would be casual. Well, what did that mean when we would be meeting with a group described as the top 1% of the world's most wealthiest people? We had just joined the Giving Pledge, the philanthropic organization that you heard about a little bit already. And the key, I'm not reading this now, but the key aspect of the Giving Pledge is that all members pledge to give the majority of their wealth either then or before their death to charity. Prior to our arrival in Phoenix for that visit, I will share with you that we flew by JetBlue to Phoenix. We drove our budget rental car somewhere at about 50 miles northwest of Tucson, and we checked into the hotel, which was actually a resort that had been closed to the public for that weekend. And the first thing I was asked when I got to the registration desk, and I'll ask you here, how many people would know what you were being asked if you were asked your tail number? What's your tail number, Mr. Cummings? Pretty small. The idea was this resort had its own private airport, or a local airport that it had taken over, and almost all the people there arrived in their own planes. Joyce and I have never had a ride in a private plane, ever, for any reason, and may go through my life without doing so. But that was our first introduction. When we got into the first assembly meeting, there we were, the newest members, in a room with half the size of this room probably. I think there were 60 couples in there more or less. And without a doubt, we were the poorest people in the room. And we qualified to be in the Giving Pledge. The requirement was that you have assets of $1 billion or that you had them and gave them away, either one. So we were kind of, at that point, we had given away a whole lot. But we were the poorest there. After many successful years, I'm back to reading now, after many successful years building Greater Boston commercial real estate, Joyce and I came to believe that no one can really own anything. With our ever so brief stays upon this earth, how can we possibly think of, in any way, our owning land? What does it mean to own the land? How can we ever be anything more than caretakers of the ground that lies beneath anything we might build or develop? It was then quite easy to start giving back much more of what we had. And one last paragraph now. We've never particularly liked the expression, give until it hurts. The better expression, I wrote, might be, give until it feels good. The Giving Pledge really feels good, and we applaud the vision and the leadership of its founders. Although there are many references to the Giving Pledge within these pages, including some details from members' own biographies, this is in no way intended to be a book about the Giving Pledge. That's not its purpose. I have sometimes described starting small and making it big as a book about business and entrepreneurship disguised as an autobiography. So this is where the book comes from to a large extent. And what are we doing with philanthropy? We're trying to do the right thing. We've got far more than we or our family will ever want to have. But I still want to keep on working. I passed my 80th birthday a while back, and I enjoy it. I envy the pro golfers that we see in the senior tour playing all around the world and still playing golf and playing for money. But they're doing it because they like doing it. I love building things. I love working with our team of 370 or so full-time people because we do so many things in-house with our own staff. Not the way that you're going to learn how to do it in any actual course. It's not the way things are usually done. Cummings Properties has a legal department. Our legal department of 4 attorneys has 4 times been appeared at the Massachusetts Supreme Court, and in all cases, we established new precedents. We've got a design department that has three registered architects, full-time registered architects on staff, plus structural and electrical engineers, registered engineers on staff. So we do lots of things in the design of these buildings. Most of you have probably seen or will recall our building at Trade Center Park in Woburn, where the Superior Court, Middlesex County Superior Court is now. You know, that's a building that was totally designed in our office by our staff, and then, as with all the buildings that we have, we're the general contractors. We get out and sub that work out to sometimes to contractors that we've worked with from 20 and 40 years, 20 to 30 years, and at least one case 40 years since the first building we ever built. Happens to be a flooring contractor, a company that installs concrete floors. Our seniority in employees is very similar. It's long-term. The people who work at Cummings Properties like it because they like the fact that they're not working to build a bigger house or a collection of homes, trophy homes, for Bill and Joyce Cummings or for anybody else. We're there, and we've got a team that loves to work together. People who join that, and if some of you are looking for careers in real estate before you start your own, and I'm sure that's the prime objective of most people here, we're a firm that likes to have new blood coming in. The tenants, firms tend to stay a long time also. We have a celebration tomorrow. Eric, how many people are eligible? Is it 88 or something? 83 firms among our clients who've been client firms of Cummings Properties for more than 20 years. One of those firms has been with us for 42 years. Our most senior employee, the dean of the workforce at Cummings Properties, has been with us 42 years. Kind of nice, isn't it? It just, and lots of other, again, the average seniority is 11 and a half years. So it's a different kind of a company, and as you read the book, you're going to find that there are a lot of things that don't match up with what you and every other good business school in the country teach, as far as things like personal guarantees on loans or non-recourse mortgages. We don't have any of those. We don't have any mortgages now, but when we did have them, I personally guaranteed every one of them. And we've never had a bankruptcy situation or a bill that was unpaid. And that's a risky way to do it in some respects, and not the way you hear it, right? Doesn't happen that way. And so it's altogether different. So there are lessons on how to do things in the book, and a lot of them. But the overall concept that we pulled together, and that I've run these businesses when I was running them myself and training other people and stepping aside now so other really qualified people run the company. But it's always been, it's a different kind of an organization, but the principles that are in there are still the same. So Paul, you've got, where should I go with?
Well, I read the book, and we scheduled, I think, for an hour and a half. We could talk a lot longer. You mentioned about your employee longevity, and there's a section in the book that talks about your philosophy of finding what people are good at and then keeping them busy doing it, including one gentleman who was a carpenter for years, was slowing down in his ability to do the carpentry work, and you had him train other people as to how to do that work and help maintain and build your organization.
He became, when he hit 73, he became our job coach. He'd still like to climb up on the roof, as I do still, and look at things and see what's going on and help typically the younger people who are there, but not always younger, but mostly were younger than he was. But that's something we still do. It's something that I think it was Phillips that used the expression management by walking around, and that certainly is my style. We have we have a strong rule that we don't screen phone calls in the company. I'm jumping around a little bit here, you know, by reason of the fact that we want to be available. We want to be available because we're walking around, if somebody wants to call, and if there's a problem, there's a complaint, something we're not doing right, boy, we want it so much more important that any business owner knows the bad things that are happening, knows the risks that may be coming around the corner, and begin to work at it and take corrective measures or whatever has to happen. And that's something that we always want. Another thing that we do that we talk about a little bit, I talk about a little bit in the book, and first of all, I'll use a pontifical we, and it's rare that I talk too much about me and I, because we're so much a team. But it's so important, really, to be accessible to people at all levels. Somebody in the field sees that it gets a plan and it shows the wall is over here and the column's sitting here, and the wall's in the wrong place probably, even if it's designed that way. We want people to come in and carpenters or team leaders to come in and talk to the design department. Say, do you realize this is there? And 9 times out of 10, it's a mistake that could happen if somebody didn't say something. So to encourage colleagues, employees, whichever it might be, to stand up and speak up and let management know if there's a problem there, and whenever it comes up. That's been a big part of the shtick of how the company operates.
You have another one that is not the 80-20 rule, you call it the 80% rule?
Yeah, that's much the same thing. And it's, again, collaborate with your colleagues. Two words go together, they're supposed to go together, so use that. And if there's, to recognize if there's a major problem, probably the first person who deals with it isn't going to get it all right coming up with the answer. But at the same time, how many people do you all know who, if they hear about an issue and they make a decision, don't want to be second-guessed? Or if somebody else comes along and says, well, what if you changed it this way or that way? Or they don't want to hear that. Hey, I've got it, I want it this way, I've decided it. They get possessive of that. But instead, if we can just to be the person that wants to hear from colleagues, anybody who's got ideas and is thinking we respect, tell us if something's wrong. There's usually a better way. The first answer on any difficult problem is probably not going to be immediately apparent to anybody. But get together with others and talk about it. So we use the 80% rule there. This is particularly important if we're being challenged on something, it could end up in litigation. And it's not all the attorneys. It's so much better if the attorneys can get good paperwork, properly organized, and the people who are preparing it have some idea what they need to be careful of. And there's laws, and sometimes any business is going to be guilty of misinterpreting or missing or overlooking some applicable law. So how do you get around that? How do you keep it out of court and work up get together with whoever it might be and say, gee, why don't we come in and talk about that? And you take a little different approach, but always collaborative even with the other side, to try to listen first. One of the best things that happens with us, if there's a problem, somebody say, oh, they got this, they got Hale and Dora, they got Ropes and Gray, boy, we're in trouble now. So much rather be dealing with a responsible large firm that wants to find a solution and wants to get it right, and is not just out to make a mess in the courthouse. And that happens so often. You get attorneys that will get involved in something, and they really may be over their head, but they know how to smash and burn and hurt people, and embarrass them, and intimidate them. That's not what you want. But if you can get to talking to people, and if you've got a local manager perhaps that you're dealing with, and he or she is somebody who wants to show how important he or she can be and how powerful, that happens sometimes. But maybe you can find somebody, that's probably when you want to get a hold of the legal department at that person's firm, if it's a local branch firm. But that 80-20 thing, though, is still recognize that the first answer,
Is at best 80% right.
oh, yeah, right, yeah. And maybe 10 of that can be done better. So you'll never get it perfect, just like writing this book. I'd hate to tell you how many times we revised some of the chapters. You know, and as recently as, half an hour ago, I was asking Paul to take an analytical look at a page or two of it and see what he can come up with for me. We've printed the book. We've had three printings so far, and we're ordering another 5,000 copies next week. We've been advertising it by word of mouth mostly. We've been advertising it through recipient organizations that most of them have substantial fundraising mailing lists. One sent a copy out just 2 days ago, and so we sent this to 7,903 firms yesterday, or supporters. And that's a good way to get things going. And I'm so pleased to be here tonight and appreciative of the marvelous turnout. I originally heard, well, we're going to try to get at least 100 people. So this is wonderful. It's a new thing for me. I'm not a public speaker. I'm mostly somebody that tries to stay either on the construction site with my muddy boots on, or in the conference room working with teams, or consulting on the roof of the building, maybe, as I told you before. But to be here and have an opportunity to teach a little bit, that's a big part of writing the book. As I mentioned before, it's a book on business and entrepreneurship disguised as an autobiography. Sure, my kids will recognize it as an autobiography. They're all mentioned there, but it's not. We're not talking about what we had for Christmas dinner 3 years in a row. So it's great to be here, and I'm thrilled to be with you all.
Well, speaking of entrepreneurship, reading the book, started in sales with Vicks, and then with Gorton's, and then this business called Old Medford Fruit Punch. That, the story of how that started, and how you got that going, and how that led to your first small real estate project that led to the much larger series of projects.
That story was all based in colleges. Bought a little company that one time was owned by the same company that had made Old Medford rum in Medford on Fulton Street. Any Medford people here? Must be a few. No Medford? Oh, okay. The Old Medford Food Products, at the time was called Wilmot Simonson Company, have been in business as its own for 100 years. And one of their products, the last product they had, at one point they made Mrs. Simonson's pie filling, and they made Old Medford Fruit Punch. Two customers they had included Walker Memorial Dining Hall at the law school, at MIT, and the other was Harkness Commons at Harvard Law School. Well, they used Old Medford for decades. Maybe there was some, I suggest in the book, there might have been some buy local idea in those days too. But for whatever reason, they used Old Medford Fruit Punch, and had been for years and years. But they used it for events after normal daytime events, or to accompany a tray of cookies or something, because the such and such an organization is meeting in Olin Hall and 220 or wherever it might be, and oftentimes they'd send fruit punch down. I said, well, can we sell you a little more fruit punch maybe? Well, we love the product, but we can't use it on the serving line. Well, I said, what if we could find a nice large dispenser, refrigerated dispenser? I've heard of a company that makes them. And indeed we did. We found a product that stand about that high, and it held 14 gallons of fruit punch at a time. All of a sudden it made sense for Harkness Commons, that was the first, I'm sorry, for MIT. It made sense for MIT to put Old Medford Fruit Punch out on the serving line. At about that time was the colleges just got to the point where they were giving students pretty much unlimited seconds and unlimited beverages at that time, and then unlimited seconds on food. There were Norris milk dispensers in every dining hall that in the country, it seemed, all once that happened. where students would go up and they would have the opportunity to take, instead of getting an 8-ounce container, paper container of wood milk, they would get the cup and push the dispenser up and they'd get their milk. And at that time, they had switched to giving them all the milk they wanted. And once one school did that, they all did it about the same time. The milk was costing about 5 cents a cup. We put the dispensers in and reminded them, the students were taking all that they could hold for the most part, all that they could ingest, and they were often taking 3 or 4 glasses of milk. 5 cents a cup. Old Medford cost them 2 cents a cup. They're only going to hold so much. So our pitch right from the start was, get Old Medford fruit punch in, give them a choice, make them happier, and you save 3 cents on every cup they drink. Now that logic is a little flawed. Any of you who are doing survey work know that there's a lot of flaws in that, but it still worked. They started telling their friends. We sold fruit punch here at Babson. We sold fruit punch at Wellesley. We sold fruit punch to 70% of New England colleges probably. We got to the point where we were shipping fruit punch to Puerto Rico. Can you imagine Boston fruit punch being sold in Puerto Rico? I couldn't imagine it at the time, but it was a company called Saga Food Service that had the contract down there, and they bought nationally, so fruit punch came from Boston. And eventually, we discovered that we could make just as good a product with artificial sweeteners. Product cost, maybe 1/3 what it was made with sugar. Well, these drinks, the fruit punch lemonade and orange had a lot of fruit in it. Lemon and lime, cherry, and a couple of the other flavors didn't have any fruit at all. It was strictly it was a chemical drink. In those days, it wasn't frowned upon to have a sugar drink. Sugar wasn't a bad name in beverages like it is today. But we didn't go in saying anything other than try our drink. We didn't advertise it as sugar-free, but all the new schools, we started shipping sugar-free product. They liked it just as much as anybody else did. We changed the product, and we were making a sugar-free drink. Sugar-free product is costing us a fraction. The bottle cost just as much, and the other ingredients, but the sugar was the major ingredient, and the chemical sweetener was not at all. Later today, I think some people would advise you don't drink artificial sweeteners either. But most people would advise if you're going to drink a fruit juice drink or a soda, far better it be sweetened with today's sweeteners than with sugar. So we made out extremely well that way. As it turned out, cyclamate was knocked off the market as well, and then we went back to making another formulation. But it was not, I guess it was about 6 years altogether. So we took this company that I paid $4,000 for it when I bought it. They wanted, the price when I first talked to the owner was, well, it's a 6-figure number. I don't know how much I should get for it, but I don't think you can afford that much. And he said, well, I'll sell it for $40,000. So we eventually compromised at $4,000. And I bought the business after seeing it in the morning, visiting the owner at his home in West Medford that afternoon, and that evening we paid for it and we owned it and had the keys. It was that fast in one day. A big point I make in the book, the biggest thing about opportunity is recognizing when it comes along and then taking advantage of it. Sometimes you take a chance. And the big thing there is that the chance isn't going to be such that it's going to devastate you if it goes bad. Well, how much are we risking? $4,000. Some of you know, how many of you have heard of the United Shoe property in Beverly? A former manufacturer of shoe and machinery. Quite a few. The company was a blue chip company of its day. It was referred to by many as the Microsoft of its day. United Shoe Machinery Company made 43% at one point of all the shoe machinery, not shoes, but machines to make shoes in the country. The U.S. government, made 43% of all the shoe machinery in the world, and 85% of that was made in the United States. But the government, in its wisdom, decided that was a monopoly and closed it down about 1979, made it break up and sell its parts. And it just faded after that, it went away. So the property had been on the market for sale for more than 15 years. The price had originally been 89 million and it dropped to 69 million and 50 and 40 and 30. Now it was down to $10 million for 100 acres and 1.5 million square feet plus of concrete buildings. $10 million. Well, we're really not interested. Well, how about if you made an offer for 5 just to get you talking? The company was owned by the Black & Decker Corporation at the time, but they were in Baltimore. Black & Decker wasn't much interested in listening to us at all, but then the property up on Route 3 here at the, what am I trying to think of, Eric? What's the intersection up there?
Route 3.
Yeah, I'm just lost the name.
Wang Tower.
Wang Towers, thank you.
Mike Tower, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So Wang Towers sold for something like $500,000.
528,000.
Okay, were you bidding? Okay. And what was the big thing that happened? What did they find after they bought it? It didn't include something. What wasn't included? They bought it, they made the deal right by paying another $1 million. The parking lot. The parking lot was, they had leased the parking lot. Nobody knew that. So they got the buildings for $528,000. So we FedExed the front page of the Globe with a picture of that building, $528,000, down to Black & Decker and said, "Is our offer look any better now?" And Wang Towers looked a lot nicer than our building. But we ended up buying Beverly for $500,000. And again, today that property is got 53 or 5,400 people working in it again, and it's assessed by the city of Beverly for something like 120 million. So it's all sorts of office, research, laboratory, a lot of medical offices there. There are some, I heard a number once of 180 plus physicians, surgeons, dentists, et cetera, people who are doctors of something working in that building every day, seeing patients. It's a huge medical complex, and because it's nearby to both Salem and Beverly Hospital.
Well, I think the key is it wasn't that you just got lucky. It was,
Sure it was.
this had been out
we
there.
were lucky.
You saw the opportunity that other
Fine.
people didn't see.
Sure.
Right. So,
In that one, every legitimate developer or significant developer in New England had been through that property beforehand. I mean, everybody knew about it, and it was too big. But at the same time, for what we invested in it, we set up a new corporation to own it. But for $500,000, it didn't matter. We were going to do something with it. And if we had to, we could have gone in there and taken it down. We got very fortunate after that when it caught the attention. Does anybody know the name Ada Louise Huxtable? Ada Louise Huxtable was the architecture critic for the Wall Street Journal. Formerly to that, she had been the architecture critic for the New York Times, had written 6 or 7 books before she died a couple of years ago. And Ada Louise was in New York, but she had a home in Salem, summer home. And she had taken a liking to that building, and then she heard what we were doing. She came over, and she gave us the nicest above-the-fold spread of United Shoe, this endorsement from Ada Louise Huxtable. I asked, when they called us, we didn't go looking for them. Okay? I think we came looking for you guys here today. We reached out. You didn't find us. We reached out and said it would be nice to talk to Babson. Okay? But Ada Louise found us. And it was maybe a day after she called, I asked one of our architects up in Beverly, do you know who Ada Louise Huxtable is? Oh, Bill, you don't know who she is? I was weaned on Ada Louise Huxtable in architecture school. Yeah, and she is the preeminent architecture critic. And I called her an architectural critic one time. She said, I'm not an architectural critic. I'm an architecture critic. So I learned that. You have to keep listening all the time. A sweetheart of a lady that just made such a difference that we had something like that to reproduce that without permission, I'm sure. Without permission to reproduce that front page. It wasn't a front page, I'm misleading you. But it was a section cover within the paper. And that's getting lucky.
Yeah, that is getting lucky. Now, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask Bill? Because if you do, I think Farah's got a microphone. You can raise your hand and we'll interject with the questions. But otherwise,
I'd love to hear some questions. I really would. We planned on for that, and I hope it won't disappoint. Okay, we got two up in the back, Sarah.
up higher, I think.
Hi.
I don't know if this is working. I'm Joseph. Thank you so much for coming. Big fan. I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the most emerging markets now in Boston? Which areas do you think are on the up and coming that's good to invest in currently?
The market in the seaport is certainly an up and coming area if the tides don't keep coming in too often. And you know, some of the land prices in there would just astound anybody to see what land is sold for there. So I don't think that's the place for anybody in this room, including myself, to start out. You know, land is where you find it, and it's where there's to me, and for anybody doesn't know a lot more about it than I do, the thing to do is to look for fixer-uppers. I think that's the perfect way to start off with real estate. There are a lot of properties that we own that were things that other people passed over because they looked bad. They were shabby, and certainly the United Shoe looked as shabby as anything could possibly have looked, with acres of broken windows up there. There's 2,000 windows, all of them 10 foot square, exactly, okay? And 90% of them mostly broken. Okay, so emerging market, hard to tell. I don't have any wisdom about that at all. I think it is where you make it to try to get in, and the ideal formula, I'm sure you've talked about it, and many of us have talked about it in classes, is to move in next to Disney World before anybody knows what's going to come of it. So that's all I can have, all the wisdom I have. Somebody else up in the back?
Hi, thank you so much for coming. You're a Boston guy, so just a super quick question. Do you think Amazon's coming to Boston?
It'd be nice if they came to Beverly, especially. No room for them here in Waltham. I think Boston's got a good shot at that. I hope so. You know, it probably wouldn't turn out quite like the GE deal. That's as good as that is. It's not what a lot of people were thinking it might be. But anything that's happening, I think that that type of venture can do so much for the city and make just a world of difference. That'd be terrific if they could find a place, and they would want to know. They'll do a lot more studying than I would ever do to where to put it. That's going to take some doing. It gets exciting then. You're building something like that. Up the back row, I think. Gentleman in the middle, did you raise your hand? Oh, two of them. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Monish. So you said that early on in your career, you personally guaranteed a lot of your mortgage loans yourself. Did that ever give you any sleepless nights, or did that ever worry you that if that went south, you would be personally liable?
I'm not understanding just.
I'll
Were you
repeat
bothered by being a guarantor on debt? Did it cost you any sleepless nights?
No,
No.
never.
All right.
Really, never. We were confident enough of what we were doing. I will tell you something else that's akin to that. Well, first of all, I've never done a business plan. I've been taught how to do them, never done one. Typically don't of any sort. We don't price a building before we start to build it. We don't have a budget for a building before we start to build it. Because we're building much the same thing all the time. We've built enough of them, one after the other. The old days, it used to be Howard Johnson that had and McDonald's that would have the replica. They knew what they were going to build just by in their head. It's either it's an A, a B, a C, or a D, or an E. And our buildings are, typically are going to be, if we build it from scratch, are going to be half A and half B, or put together chunks. And we know that if we build it, the cost is going to be half of what somebody else is going to pay, so why do we need to know how much? We build them all from cash if we build. When we had mortgages on property, and we had them on all the buildings at one point, what we would do would be very much to build a building without ever getting a construction loan. When I sold Old Medford Foods, I told you I bought Old Medford Foods for $4,000, and I sold it for just under $1 million. So I had a nice amount of cash at that point to build. We bought a lot next door to Old Medford. It was an empty lot. We put a building up on that. We put another building on that. Then we connected the two of them together. Building A, this was 2 to 6 down here, and this is 8, and then we put 7 in the middle. And built 100,000 square feet that way. And then when we filled it rather quickly, then we got the mortgage. So even then, we priced it out as we got it. Once we had made a contract for the foundation, I'd fill in that blank. That's our budget for the foundation, is the lowest price I could get. The budget for the steel erection, or the steel itself, another item. Once we got the prices in, we'd fill that number in. So I've got one of those for one building way back when. But we never had prices for them. Never had budget. Never had a budget ever. Crazy, right? Come on, right? Crazy? Okay? But if we know that we're going to, the numbers are going to come out all right, we always did, and always have come out well. Yes, right here. Nice to meet you. You don't have a mic, so you got to talk real loud.
Sorry?
You don't have a mic, so.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Can you guys hear me in the back?
Okay.
Okay, great. My question is, what is a personal characteristic that has led you to where you are right now, and are you happy with what you've done with your life so far? So it's kind of a deep one.
There's a book called Catching Lightning in a Bottle. That's a Merrill Lynch book written by Winston Smith from way back when. And if I had read that book, I told some of the Merrill folks this recently. If I had read that book, I'd probably have been in financial services. It did such a good job of explaining how to be a stockbroker, really, at the most elemental stages. I'm delighted with the way my life has turned out. Would I have ever predicted it would be anything like this? Absolutely not. I never took a course in construction of any sort, other than on a Saturday morning with my, always seemed to always have a couple of toddlers around the house, and I'd take a walk around other construction sites. I learned how to build a building that way, read a lot of magazines, and so on. Never had any idea. First of all, I had no idea about fruit punch. That was strictly serendipitous that I found it. Our life changed after 1987 when we started the foundation. We started Cummings Foundation, and it's a good time to switch into that probably, but from that point on, I was working for a different cause. Our kids, and we have 4 children, they're all doing things. None of them has any interest in the business. So my interest in it now is for the employees and the team that we have, management and field both, who do such a good job. I love working with them. I get a great deal of satisfaction from that. I couldn't be any happier. The deal with my bride of 51 years, excuse me, almost 52. My deal with her is that I can work full-time as long as we take off 12 weeks a year. So we go to Florida. We've had a place down there for 32 years, and just south of Juno Beach in Singer Island. And the first few years, we'd go down for a couple of weeks in the summer with the kids and vacation weeks from school. And it was, I was tethered to the phone all the time because there was so much going on and I was responsible. Now I'm not, so we go down there, we spend a good bit of time there. We've traveled, as you'll see in the book. She and I together have been, or in total, I know I've been in I counted it up recently, in 75 or 76 different countries. And so we do a lot of traveling and learned a lot from that. Some now on behalf of the foundation, but most of that, the work that we do, the grants are set up. We've got 2 programs that distribute $10 million a year strictly in Middlesex, Essex, and Suffolk counties. We do it in these counties because this is where we derived our funds. This is where our employees, colleagues live. It's where our clients and their employees live. And to try to put it back in the areas where it can make a difference. 90%, more than 90% of the grants that go out to organizations that neither my wife or I ever heard of before. So people think, well, oh, do you make all the final decisions? Oh my God, no. We use, there's 80 some, mostly professional community people who, as volunteers, make most of the decisions on where the money goes. And they do it by taking in this many, and then one group will reduce it to this many of the best. The first process is to get rid of the ones who really don't qualify for what we say we're doing. The next group reduces it that much again. And the final group comes in, and there are 10 committees. This 100 for 100 program, which some of you will see advertised or promoted shortly, 100 organizations who've been doing this for 8 years get $100,000 each. And most of those decisions for who gets those awards are these community groups. And they will get together, and there's 10 of them. Each one of the committees has one person from our staff, typically a mechanic of some sort, a carpenter, an electrician, plumber, custodian, doesn't matter, sometimes a leasing person from the office. And they will decide where, and I won't bore you with how they decide, but they will decide who it's going to be. Not us or our managers. And it's so good because it ensures diversity. We've got people from, we don't have any property that we work with or develop or own, certainly in Boston or Cambridge or anywhere in Suffolk County, but so many employees come from there, and the other groups that are important to us come there. But, and still though, we don't know them. We don't know who they're going to be, and that is extraordinarily rewarding to see that happen and see the results of it. And we just got through a program now, the Sustaining Grants, which is a new program for another $10 million that gives ongoing grants for 10 years to the winners of the 100 for 100 program. And we're finding that it's so important to businesses, I'm sorry, not to business, but to charities, to have an ongoing known source so that the key people in the organization aren't doing the fundraising thing all the time. I mean, it's well known, that you don't have a university like Babson without having key leaders who are great fundraisers. They have to know how to do that. It's such a key important thing. What's important in the smallest organizations as well is somebody there has got to have that knowledge to how to go out and raise funds, develop the loyalty that this school has done so well and so efficiently, and cultivate the alumni group so they want to stay a part of it. And there's a real science to it, but it doesn't have to start just with universities and big organizations. So we're trying to do that, but using the community to do it. So that's where the real satisfaction comes in. Yep.
How you doing? My name is Isaac Asab. I have 2 questions. First off, you said that none of the properties you own have any loans on them anymore. So my question is, do you ever sell the properties? And if so, what's your usual holding period for those properties? And then secondly, which is another very different topic, for students like us that are studying real
Let's
estate.
get rid of the first one, then you can stand up again. Keep the mic. It's a short answer. We don't sell properties. I don't think of anything we've ever sold unless it was a trade for something we wanted more. It's rare that we would ever sell a property, and we buy it with that thought in mind. The transition costs of selling and all the costs that go along with that, with brokerage expenses and merchandising and marketing and just the difficulty of bringing them into the fold, that's very expensive. So once we get them, we just keep them. What's the other question?
Okay, and the second question being, for a lot of us students here studying real estate, would you recommend, like there's a lot of paths to take, and specifically something that I've been struggling with is seeing if I take the path of an analyst position and going into the financial side and really getting a good understanding of that in working, or taking the path of asset management and learning better relations and management of buildings and properties.
We don't do any analysis in our case. We don't. I mean, look at it and say if it makes sense, and it's got to make so much sense before we're going to look at it. We buy bargains and things that the key members of the team will look at it and will know immediately if this is a bargain that's being overlooked. So that's something, and frequently we hear somebody who's got, boy, I've got a lot of experience in real estate. Of just exactly the type that you're describing. Most similar companies would need that. We wouldn't know how to use that talent if we had it. And so it's, and I don't want to sound too cavalier. It's not just, you take a dart and you throw it out, you don't care where it lands. You absolutely better damn well care and understand where it lands. And there's got to be some reason to buy it. And one of those reasons, by the way, is geographic for us. If it's a property that it needs to be near. At this point, the expression we use is we've never gone anywhere that I don't go to on my bicycle. So from Winchester or Woburn, I'll ride there on my bike every once in a while just to do it. And so I could and do ride in the city, but we don't go there for other reasons in Boston. But again, we don't know the market. Suburban markets, different story. It's mostly the same, and it's fraught with danger if you've got somebody that doesn't like one in the community and wants to make a show of it. That can be a problem, but that's the analysis we do. Yes.
Thank you for coming on the anecdotes. I just have a question. When was the last time you purchased the property, like the last five properties that you purchased?
The last time I what with the property?
You say you don't sell, so when was the last time you bought something?
The last thing we bought was a building on Shattuck Road in Andover, the other side of 95. There was a 120,000 foot building, Eric, something like that. 20-year-old, something that was owned by Boston Properties as it happened, and it was a private transaction that we did with them without any real estate brokers, and we purchased the building at about $100 a foot, I think, a little more. And 80% full, respectable rents, good decent return. If we bought it with 80%, maybe we bought it a year and a half ago, and now it's maybe 85%. So it's creeping up. We've got other prospects to come in there, and so we're looking to buy them. The more likely time will be if we hit a recession. And somebody asked me earlier, isn't it about time for a real estate recession? I'm pointing out that 7 years is about time. See, I'm learning while I'm here too. And that was coming from pretty good authority. But if that time comes, we bought a lot of properties when the last big recession hit. So that's the time to buy.
That's what I told my clients. I'm in real estate, and that's why I tell my clients to stock up their cash.
Oh. Yep. Good. Thank you. Up in the back. Then over here. Yes.
My name is Liam. I mentioned earlier how you do all your staffing in-house. I was just wondering if you could explain why you do that a bit more, so I figured that would be pretty costly.
Why we do it that way?
Yeah. Other than like outsourcing maybe some jobs that you don't necessarily need in-house.
We outsource work that we can do it competitively and expect to get that it's easy enough to define it and have somebody do it for us and get competitive prices on it. What we What we don't do is ever to do small jobs with outside contractors. If we're building a new building, certainly then we're going to outsource everything in the building. We're going to put up a foundation in, we're going to put piles in maybe, or we're not. We're going to put up a concrete floors, or we're going to put precast floors, or we're going to put structural steel. But all those things are major contracts that represent a significant percentage of the building. Those we're going to use contractors, and usually fairly substantial sized contractors, because our buildings are usually pretty large. And the things that we don't do, that we do ourselves. Again, 370 employees and 110 or so of those are in the field trades, one type or another. Most all of the maintenance we do ourselves. We send a maintenance truck to take something, have something done in a building. We want them to fix anything that they're capable of fixing while they're there, not just the row of loose seats maybe over here, but if they see a loose door coming in, or they see some a hole in a wall or something, they can fix that, do that themselves. We provide the maintenance, and it's so much more efficient. Over here in the front. Well, okay.
Hi.
After that, you're next.
So just a quick question. What advice would you give to anyone, as entrepreneurs that we are here, what advice would you give someone looking to start their own practice in real estate? And what are your thoughts on real estate brokerages? It seems like you might try to avoid those a little bit more in terms of cost savings.
We would love to avoid real estate brokerage, but real estate brokers have the ability to deliver clients, and we've got to respect that and work with them anytime we can. It used to be that real estate brokerage was paid on a percentage of the net revenue of the project, or the gross sale, whatever it was dollar-based. And then at some point, brokers started trying to be paid on a per square foot basis. Well, being paid $1 or $1.25 per square foot on a nice building up here on the hill, whatever hill, where the hills are here in town, being paid on a square foot basis for something that's going to lease at $25 or $30 a square foot is okay. If we've got buildings, though, that are out in the suburbs a little more, and we're getting $15 a square foot, it doesn't feel very good to pay that same square footage per square foot, the same price. So that's the problem that comes up there. But indeed, most brokers are a little understanding in that regard, and we try to work with them. We've always had a program of trying to pay brokers pretty much by return mail. Okay? We don't want to work on anyone else's money. We're fortunate enough that we've got the funds, and we treat contractors the same way. Contractor does the work. They'll work for us for a lower rate because they know they're never going to get stood up. They know they're not going to ever have to take us to court, or ever going to have to argue about the price of a job after it's done, especially. And beforehand, yes, we negotiate good prices early on. And I talk quite aspersively about people who look at it in the book, about people who would go out and buy services and say, I get 3 quotes, and I give the lowest quote. Well, probably the far better way to do it is to get 1 quote and then rebid it again with somebody else when you know that you can get it done for this much, and you talk to the next bidder, say, I'm looking to get a price anywhere under this, 10% lower than you already have. Usually you're going to find that, and you do it again over here with another bidder. You've got to pay attention to that. It's not people aren't obligated to give you the lowest bid that they're capable of doing. That's a game. How do you tease it out of the supplier what his or her lowest bid is going to be? So that's such a key part. Now, as far as getting started in real estate,
Real estate practice, they're owning, as an entrepreneur starting their own real estate practice, what kind of advice and tips would you give that individual?
as a person selling real estate for others.
Maybe not just brokerage, maybe asset management. I mean, maybe a couple properties they own themselves and they want to start their own property management team or something like that. Any kind of advice in that direction?
Yeah, well, that I can talk about. Okay, because that's where there's so many opportunities, and it's just going in and recognizing that you've got something that you can work with, and I can fix that building. And it's a fixer-upper concept, and sweat equity. Those are the two key words. Okay, and you're usually not going to get the best deal by outbidding somebody. You want to get the property that either hasn't been offered or something that's in really bad condition and everybody else has said, no, I don't want anything. And then start working on it. That's where that's where you develop the skills to know what trades you need and what you should be paying for work to get done and negotiate with people. That's the big thing. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Gurprashad Singh, and I just wanted to ask if you could talk about some of the strategies that you thought or still think are most important when growing your practice and growing your business, like to the extent that you've grown it. So if you could just talk about that.
Loyalty I've touched on it before already, but loyalty with providers, contractors, subcontractors, and loyalty with teammates. Those two, and buying things right. They keep recurring all the time. One thing on the real estate side, and I talk a lot about this, I talk about extra buildability with a property. A property that's got a building situated in the middle of a lot like this, you've got this building. Well, is there room to put another half a building over here? And if so, what's that going to cost? That new building becomes the front, it gives a better image to the whole thing, okay? And you get disproportionately more for that, and you make the rest of the building worth more because you fixed up the front of the property, haven't you? The part that's exposed that everybody sees from the street is upgraded, and it upgrades the whole thing. But your cost on that piece is probably going to be less because it's already got the sewerage and it's already got the zoning taken care of, and you've got the driveways in, and maybe you need some more parking or something, and you're not paying for the land. Land is very often going to be a third of the cost of a project. If you can buy a building that's already got a property that's already got a building on it, and there's room to put more building, you're probably not going to pay for that. You certainly don't want to make a point of telling the buyer, I'm looking to build something where I can build more. Just don't even hint at that. And don't tell the broker, help me find something like that, because the broker is going to probably tell somebody else if you don't take it. You keep that to yourself. But that can make such a difference. And I probably talk about it I tried not to have this be a chronological summary of buildings that we've bought and improved, but there's a lot of it in there. And I use the word buildability, more buildability. That's a big thing. I think we've got a deadline of 6:30, don't we?
We can take a couple more.
Okay, we can take, okay, I see 3 there and 1 over there. That 2?
Yeah, I'll do this one over here.
Okay. You didn't put your hand up already, though. Don't put it up after this.
Thanks for coming. I have a friend who went to and is a professor now at veterinary school of Tufts University, and I used to live in Medford, so I feel connected. But my question is, can you talk a little bit about failures that you recognized in your career or your life, and how you sort of dealt with that, how you overcame them? Thank you.
I missed the...
Failures, and maybe even like
failures.
the gift shop, isn't it? Or gift
no,
business.
that's perfect. It illustrates the point of mind your own knitting. And we had a colleague who needed some less strenuous and less challenging work to do, and he said to me, Bill, I don't want to leave the company, but I just can't continue to do this. It's too much stress for me. Could you buy a little business from me? I know there's a gift shop for sale, and I'll run it. And this would be terrific. And I said, okay, we'll buy it. We bought the gift shop. No concept at all of how to run it. My wife and I painted the place inside. It was right in Winchester Center, if you know Winchester Center. And it's the spot where Starbucks is in Winchester Center today. And it's beautiful little corner, but he had no concept whatsoever doing. I had no business in getting involved in something like that. And managed, however, bought it for some kind of a number like 32,000 and sold it 6 weeks later for something like 34,000, or I bought it for 34 and sold it for 32. I don't remember. It was that kind of a number though. So that was the biggest failure that we ever had, and it didn't hurt very much. Some people would say we made a big failure by not buying that the property up in on 495.
Oh, Wang Towers.
Wang Towers. If we did that, we wouldn't have purchased the Cummings Center property in Beverly, though. So I can kick myself a little bit for that, but not too much. Next.
Hi, my name is Laura. I was wondering, have you ever considered expanding your business to other states, like maybe
Never.
Florida, since you spend a lot of time there?
No, and specifically not Florida, much as I'd love to be down there on vacation time, helping drive the bulldozers. I often will do the things like that, drive a bulldozer, or operate an excavator. And I wouldn't be married now if I had done that. Absolutely, no, that would have killed it all. Would I like to have done that? Yes, but we've considered it, but never even looked at a property. We bought an apple orchard one time up in Maine, and somebody needed an exchange property. So we bought it, and technically we owned an apple orchard for 4 or 5 hours one time. But that was part of a tax-free exchange. So no, never. Again, I couldn't ride on my bike, so that let it out.
All right, we'll do one more question, Bill, okay?
Okay, you pick.
Well, my name is Alejandro, and I was also going to ask you about failures, but that's been answered. I want to end with a very stupid question, but I don't want to die without asking this question. You're the first billionaire I've ever met, and when I came to Babson, I actually had a fixation of making $1 billion, and I would tell myself every night, I'm going to make $1 billion, I'm going to be a billionaire, I'm going to show everybody wrong. And I just want to know, how does it feel like to be a billionaire? Is it... Is there anything different when you wake up?
It's a good one to end, with which to end. I will tell you that I probably was a billionaire long before I knew it. In the same way we don't do budgets ahead of time. I've never seen my net worth added up. Never begun to think about it. And the funniest thing was the Boston Globe learned that we joined the Giving Pledge and did a feature story, and above the fold front page story on it. And the editor came in and got a hold of my wife Joyce and said, I'm doing this story, and it's probably going to be funny, so I'm going to name the story The Billionaire Next Door. And I've talked to a few of your neighbors, and they had no idea. True story, okay? And Joyce said, well, he didn't either, so it's okay. Folks, thank you so much for the great work.